Hey everyone, welcome back to the shared housing class by the Normalized Money Project and also Katie's House Foundation. My name is Kirsten Vanderjack and I'm the founder and CEO of both nonprofits. And we are here on class number 3 to talk about how to analyze a property. And now we're going to be jumping into how the numbers work. In class number 2, we went over the attributes of a shared house. And so we looked at this address, which I'm actually going to share with you guys right now here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So this is just a random address that I pulled up based on some other addresses that I was looking at for an investor that he is acquiring through whichever methods that he has, which we will talk about how to acquire houses in later classes. You can do that through renting, creative finance, traditional finance, etc. So this one here, again, it's just a random, doesn't belong to anybody that I know or that any investor who I've talked with. I just want to use it as an example. So let's jump into how to take a look. And I'm actually going to just show the entire screen. So you're not going to be able to see me because I want you to be able to see all of the fine print. All right. So you should be able to see that it says 11925 Euclid Court, Northeast in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We will talk about different areas throughout the United States in later classes. But for this purpose, what we're going to look at is how we determine if we want to consider a home for a shared house. There are different special purposes. And so if you know that you want to do sober living, then there are going to be a few nuances there. If you know that you want to do human trafficking, that's something else to consider. And so having your special purpose in mind is really important. And then also, affordability is something else. What the room rents are in the area is something else. And so we'll need to look at these various items as we run through these numbers. This is going to be an important class. So please put away any distractions and let's dig in. So we have an address. First thing that I like to do is actually jump right onto Google Maps and look at the street view. So this house, I'm assuming, is probably this one. Could be this last one here. And what I'm looking for on Google is to see if there's trash laying around or if there's anyone outside dealing drugs or a group of people sitting outside that might be a nuisance. I'm looking to see if there's unlimited street parking. And then I like to go to the see more dates. And I like to look back through, what did the house used to look like? So I'm just going to actually jump back. To see how things have been changing over the course of time with this property. I'm going to try and see if I can get the address here. 11. So that's not a 5 there. So it's probably the house next door. This one here. Now, I might cruise around. Now I need to go to the most recent, but I'm going to want to cruise around and look at the main streets. I'm looking at the conditions of the roads. and just the overall feel of the neighborhood. So this looks to me to be a pretty solid neighborhood for what we're trying to do. It doesn't look like it's really super rich. I don't see any gated communities, things like that. And then it doesn't look like it's, C-class or a war zone. It looks like it's just a real nice, clean area. So once I'm here, now I like to go back and go up here to the top and look for transit. So I click here. And this is going to tell me, right, here's the property, which it was this one here that we were looking at. And it was just telling me that I have transit right here. So if I click on that, it should tell me how far it is. So it's a 6-minute walk. That's perfect. So it's not right outside the front door of the house. It's not even on the street. So that way we don't have a lot of bus traffic right in front of the house, which would not be good if there were people recovering from drugs and alcohol sometimes, because then if they went back to dealing drugs or they wanted to buy drugs, if there's a lot of transient people right in front of the house, that could be a potential trigger. So this is really great. The next thing that we're going to look at, and there's other bus stops too, so those are things to consider. Also, it should tell you when they pick up. So the stop ID 7232. Yeah, and let's see. Popular times. See departure board. So you can see that this is actually running, which is great. Okay. And so the other thing that I like to take a look at is I will go here and I will put in a store. Just type in store. And so I'm trying to understand where they can get milk and bread. And so here's the house. And looking about how far any of these stores are. So that big 5 would be maybe a place where the people could work. And I'll actually come all the way down. This is showing us grocery stores or Oriental Market, a Walmart. So this is really great that there's a Walmart that's only 14 minutes away. So they could work there. They can go shopping there. You can look at Dollar General is nearby, Albertsons Market, Family Dollar, Albertsons again. Was that the same one? Let me see, Lomas. No, so this is really a good neighborhood for shared housing, in my opinion. So what I like to do at this point is pull the title profile and look for anything related to the type of property that it is, and then also the property taxes. So here we can see 11925 Euclid Court in Northeast, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87112. And if you don't have access to pull a property profile and you are a licensed real estate agent, you can contact your title rep or any title company and ask for access. You would want to ask for Title Pro 247 is recommended, or there are other types of title toolboxes. Looking here, this is a single family residence, assumed to be, And the parcel number is here. The parcel number is really important in case you're transferring title through some type of a sale and you want to find out if the property taxes are going to change either during renovation or during a title transfer. You can see who it's owned by, that it's not in an LLC right now, the recording date, when he purchased the house. This was 2020. Again, this is public record. And the loan amount at time of purchase. The property characteristics. Many times this will not be accurate, so it is important to confirm. And then the year for insurance purposes, the square footage for the house, 1 story, no basement. The lot size is probably accurate. And then the taxes for this scenario are $3,247, essentially. That's what we're going to use for our example. Now, you can also look for comps, or you can go on Zillow and look for comps, or, there's a lot of different services that do that. I'm looking here to see, look, there's a 6-bedroom, 3-bath in the neighborhood. It's only 1,800 square feet roughly. 5-bedroom, 2-bath, 5-3. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. This was total rooms were 6-bedroom. Bedroom was 2. This one is a 5-bedroom, 2-bath. But these properties are all very similar. So that's good to know. And down here, I'm looking to see, how much the person owes on their property in case I want to buy it. I'm looking to see if it's in foreclosure, because if I'm going to arbitrage it, I don't want to lease a house that is in foreclosure. Or if they've been equity stripping and pulling cash out, that would tell me that they're in a situation that they need equity or that they need cash. So if I were going to make them an offer to lease it, that might be something of important, or of course to purchase it, it would be. Also, what kind of financing do they have? So is it private? Is it VA? Is it a HELOC? Is it an interfamily transfer through trust? Okay, so that's a title report for you. And now let's get into the actual numbers. Okay. So there are 2 different Excel spreadsheets for today that I'm going to share with you. This one that we're looking at is the pro forma for the property manager. And the reason that this one is actually labeled as property manager is because I have given this to our property manager in Birmingham, and she's able to use this with some of the passwords that I give to her. I don't give her everything. I just give her a limited amount of information, like the security system and running background checks. And then depending on what she uses to collect payments from the residents. And so what I'm going to do for the purpose of this example is just get this spreadsheet started, which is what I would normally do for a property manager. And so just using the address that we have, which is at 11925 Euclid Court Northeast. And this actually, you can just type this all out. Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87112. And so the date today, of course, is 8/28. And so if there was a vendor here that I want to share with her, it would already have the template. So that way, if she wants to copy that to another page, she could do that. So you can see here background checks. This is who we use, backgroundinfousa.com. Again, that's proprietary to our operation. You can choose to use them, or if you want to use another company, you can use another company. For home security, we use SimpliSafe, and we actually have an IT consultant on staff who looks at our properties on Google Images and then also the floor plan. And so he tells us what to purchase as far as the system goes. There are some companies like Vivint who will charge you $3,000 to do that and to set up a system, and then they have a contract. We paid, I think the last one was $700 for all of the equipment, and then the consultant got paid maybe $65 or $100. And then we get to keep the equipment instead of, I think with Vivint, we had to give it back or we were leasing it and then we would buy it later. It was very complex, whereas this is very simple. We just had our consultant take a look. Of course, we can get that done for you too as well. And then basically order the equipment through SimpliSafe, and then you can actually put it on yourself or have your maintenance crew put it on the house. And then that hooks up into your phone and also online. So you can set a security code for everyone going in and out, and then your property manager as well. We have a different one for our door in case the internet ever goes down, then people can still get in and out of the door. And then we actually have a key as well that the property manager has as a backup. So for the back door. So there's layers, right? It's just like having an Airbnb in a different state. And you're not going to want to manage the property. So having the property manager, having the maintenance crew, having the system, the security system in place, that takes care of that security for the house. Because what if it's a domestic violence situation and those are the women that you're serving or human trafficking? But really, you're just always going to want to have a Ring doorbell. You're going to just want to make sure that the whole house has that security so you know who's going in and out, and you can change codes if you need to exit somebody from your house. Okay, so this is where the money starts to accumulate. We charge people who apply for our housing $41.99 for a background check. And we actually pull, in most cases, the volunteer background because it groups in a lot of different checks instead of us getting the basic and then adding on, which actually is not as cost effective. And then if we want to tap them to be a volunteer, we can ask them to be a volunteer and they can put it on their resume, unpaid or paid. So looking here at line number 10, you would want to put your rent or your mortgage. I'm just going to use $2,084. Property taxes, this is monthly, you can see. This would be if it were annually, due date, the billing account, etc. So if we were to take the taxes from that property profile that I just looked at, that was $32.47 divided by 12. And so that would be negative $271 a month, roughly. The insurance, I will tell you, we're going to go over insurance, which is a whole specialty on its own inside of shared housing. So, I just want you guys to know some of these things, these numbers of $4,200 annually on the first shared house. That's for, about what we pay for the first one. And what we're learning is that each house after that, pretty much anywhere in the nation, it seems like, is being quoted at $555 for the whole year. Certainly, we had to go through quite a process to get our first house and our nonprofit, insured. And now that we haven't had any claims, it's very inexpensive for us to add another house. So we are currently in the process of working out JV opportunities for investors like yourself and what that might look like as it relates to who owns the risk and who, if you guys were to be tucked under our insurance and use Katie's House Foundation. So when I say our, I mean Katie's House Foundation's insurance and policies, but you would have your own LLC and you would name your own houses and you would operate your own houses or have a property manager who operates those houses and reports to you. So you would have to oversee the property managers like you do right now on your properties. We're currently going over again, assigning out how that operating agreement would look and really who owns the risk and then also the monetary rewards. So what does each entity and person bring to the table? And also the licensing around that. So, we may require that people need to have a real estate license in order to do a JV or be a lawyer or something like that. So that way, the insurance, if we were to allow people to utilize our relatively inexpensive annual insurance, which covers a lot, it doesn't cover the structure of the property, but it covers the contents of the property, the general liability of the property, the potential sexual misconduct, and several other things in the model itself. Again, we are just looking at different things that have to do with the cash flow, right? And a lot of things that have to go into it. So moving on, what I have used here for $350 per month, that of course is the $4,200 for the first house. If you want to go get your own policy, and again, by taking this 12 hours of class and also getting our website template and then changing who your population that you're targeting, it'll make it really easy for the insurance company to know how to insure you. Because a lot of people who go down this road, they don't know which insurance carriers to contact. And if they do contact them, the premiums can be very cost prohibitive because the insurance company and underwriter doesn't actually understand what they're insuring if you don't know what population you're serving, who's going to operate it, what the security measures are, and things of that nature. All right. Number 13, credit card processing fees. This is actually a formula, so be careful when you're clicking through here not to erase formulas. So that's 2% based on the income from the property. So if you do allow your residents to pay online, as a nonprofit, instead of paying about 4% processing fees, we end up paying about 2%. So F14, we're looking at payment to furniture financing. So we're going to have to talk about in a later class, what does a house require as far as the number of beds, fire extinguishers, and other types of things that are specific to a shared house. You might already know some of this stuff, but of course we'll go through it on a more granular level. So that way, if you don't have a lot of understanding about, a Narcan kit. Where do you get a Narcan kit? How much does that cost? Can you get it for free? The answer is yes, you can get it for free. But so these are the things that you're going to want to know. So for furniture financing, if you get some furniture donated or if you buy it, it's definitely going to be $10,000 is what I would just plan on spending to get a house fully set up, if not more, depending on the size of the house and how detailed you want to be. So then we come down to water, power, internet, so utilities, annual fees. So maybe they're more for you, but banking can be free if you have a free business account. Legal might be expensive for you. It might be inexpensive for you. I don't know what your attorney charges or if you have some kind of a subscription attorney. But so this is something to pay attention to would be 19, line number 19, column F. Also 20 would be your maintenance. So in our model, we use a gardener and a housekeeper. And then we have the gardener go at least monthly. We have the housekeeper go as needed. Um, generally everyone picks up after themselves as far as we can tell so far. Now, in sober living or aged out foster care, that might not be the case. So, again, we're going to have to get into standard operating procedures for different types of populations later on. So, right now, we're using $300 per month, and that would include our maintenance crew having to go out and change a doorknob, something like that as well. And then, CapEx if we have to replace something. So we use $100 per month or $1,200 per year. So maybe we have to do some kind of a upgrade to the house. That would be $1,200. And so, we would put in here for the property manager the name of this particular company tied to this address. And so down here, you're going to see that you would want to rename this, whatever address it is that you put up here. The federal EIN, the Secretary of State number. You're probably going to have some annual costs around this, which you can put into this annual section. So this says that it's actually billed annually. And then what we do is, because it's not in the monthly here, we take that number over to this annual and make sure that it's in there. So this is $200 for the year for the Secretary of State, and it depends on what state it is. And so we also have a couple other annual fees. And so those all get grouped in and then divided by 12. You would want to put for your property manager who the registered agent is and their address. Same thing for where you want people to mail you payments or records retention. So that's going to be different, right? Your property manager might keep some records, and then your registered agent probably keeps no records unless it's one of your attorneys. And then you're going to have your insurance broker here and probably their phone number and email. And then you're going to put the type of insurance. And so does that mean that it is structure? If the house burns down, is it contents? So everything that you've purchased to put inside the house. So maybe you're arbitraging the house and you don't need to cover the structure because the owner covers the structure. And all you did was pay, let's say, $10,000 or $20,000 to furnish it, and you're insuring those furnishings in addition to general liability for your operation, potential sexual misconduct, nonprofit insurance, social services insurance. Is it assisted living? I mean, this is the type of insurance that goes over and above the structure. And then you could put your policy number too, of course. So if you are out traveling, like you should be eventually, when you have all of this passive income worked out in your lifetime, I hope, then your property manager would have this information. And so you would want to think about designating the house a special purpose when you're actually considering it. So for this example, we're going to use women sober living. You could name the house. Maybe you want to name it after somebody who you really care about. Or, someone you want to thank or someone you want to remember. On line number 35, you're going to want to consider if you're going to charge a non-refundable entry fee. And so what this is sometimes you might have linens for each person or other types of expenses that when someone comes in, you charge a one-time upfront non-refundable. This is typical in sober living. That is private pay. And so what will happen is that, and I'm going to put myself back on the screen here. So this is typical for private pay. When you're dealing with maybe a NAR level 3 house, which we will get more into NAR and looking at their different levels, that's the National Alliance of Recovery Residences, which is just, again, a really good foundation for anybody, for any type of special purpose housing. But what we learned was that the sober living transitional houses in the area that we like to operate those, they were working with the detox facility. And so someone would go to detox for a couple days or a couple weeks, and the insurance would pay for it. And then when they would leave there, where do they go to? Because they burn all their bridges and they need a sober house, right? Now, if you're going to have a program and amenities to support them, like a van that somebody, drives around on your behalf, so you're also going to have someone who lives there and then you need to pay that person and you need to pay for that van. And so for that reason, you would charge a $2,000 upfront fee, non-refundable, for anybody who you let into the program. And you may or may not require a background check. Now, your insurance might be written to say if they have any known violent offenses, which would mean if you don't know of them, then you could let them in, and it would be up to you if you want to do a formal background check or not. But the point is that a lot of times when people come out of those detox facilities, they will have a loved one who actually will pay for them on a credit card or something else. Generally a credit card, unless they have cash, right? For $2,000 was the typical upfront fee that we saw when there was a transportation mechanism in the house, because somebody has to be paid to transport them to their outpatient programs. And so there are IOPs, that's what it's called. You can look that up in your state. And that is basically where when somebody gets out of detox, they're required to go for 9 hours to see a therapist or do some kind of therapy. And so that would be 3 days of 3 hours of intensive outpatient programming. And so that's not something that you would do. That's someone who's credentialed, does the therapy outside of the house, or they can come inside the house. But again, the low side up front that you might want to charge if you're doing sober living would be $250, non-refundable. We, in our private pay, don't do that. We do a $100 refundable, potentially refundable deposit per bed. And so that keeps the person wanting to make sure that when they leave, their bed and their dresser is the same way that it was, because they have $100 skin in the game. Not a whole lot, but they're getting something back or hoping to get something back. So, okay, moving forward to line number 37, right? Charging for a background check, self-pay if you want to do that. Now, our website, you can go to katieshousefoundation.org for the nonprofit website for housing. And that is going to allow people to pay online, which makes it easier for the property manager. Now, a lot of property managers will have their own pay online type of website. So, okay, line number 40, we're going to put the number of bedrooms and baths. So for this example, we're using a 6-bed, pre-bath. We're going to say that the house manager or the house president, which we're going to get into the differences and the backups and kind of how to go through that in a different episode, or a different class, I should say. So room number 6 or space number 6, maybe it's a converted dining room. That we're going to call the volunteer house president. This is a single bed, single occupancy. So he or she is paying the same as other private payers, but the benefit is that it's single occupancy in the room or the space. And this is normally the person who just naturally likes to speak up and say something's broken or something's not right. Now, if you have to hire somebody in, you're going to want to have a property manager first. Then, if you pay somebody, you're going to have to bring them in. And if you don't pay anybody, you're just going to go ahead and start filling beds. And then the property manager and the maintenance crew, they're going to just start going over and doing things when you need it to get done. You're going to have to call someone at the house. You probably don't want to have a big chain text going and give out your cell phone. You probably don't want to be the front of this operation for very long anyways. Those are things to consider, and your property manager is going to need to know who to contact in the house just as a courtesy. I mean, they can just pop over, quite frankly, if it's not a lease, if it's a shelter or a halfway house, and that's what's written in your intake agreement. But it is nice to have somebody who lives there who can be the, house mom, house papa, and then they can write on the whiteboard, gardener comes tomorrow. It just helps everyone out. Okay, so we are going to have 10 beds. Actually 11 with the house manager. So essentially there's 5 bedroom areas. Maybe it's a 4-bedroom house. You have a 5th room that's a finished garage or a finished basement. And then you have converted the formal dining space into the house president's room. And so that is 11 beds. And if it is a government contract, then you're going to want to see how much they're paying for your population. This is why you're taking this class now, because you're interested in doing this, but you need to start making phone calls after you pick your population. You need to Google everyone who is inside of that space in your area. And so sober living, I'm going to bring that up lots of times because people are addicted to opioids and painkillers, and there's a huge push by the US government to provide funding to people who have the NAR certification and other types of houses, where they're trying to help people get clean. But there's also a lot of other funding too for homelessness through the mayor, getting people off the streets that way. For nonprofits around human trafficking. Also, the family court system has money to give out for foster care and aged out foster care. And so this is why it's important for you to pick one of those and really start dialing to make these friendships. I'm going to use, for this example, $900 for one bed, paid by contract, or it's somebody who came out of detox and their mother, father, grandmother is private paying for them $900 per month per bed. It is much better to go to the drug court and see if you can get a contract from the grant manager there. That way that money just comes in instead of having to hope that someone private pays that. But a lot of times if they have a credit card on file, you can run that, or, they're going to go ahead and pay. What that means is that the rent would be $210 per week. And they could go on your website and just pay that every week. So normally on Mondays, I have an alert for, I will check rents on my website and I'll see how much has come in. And then the property manager can see that. Now, if they pay the property manager separately, then that wouldn't come to me. and she would be responsible for reconciling all of that. So what this example looks like here would be $210 per week for these government beds, nonprofit beds, or sober living. You really, really want to focus on getting government contracts and nonprofit contracts. So that way you know the funding is coming in. This is currently the population that is not being served by private real estate investors. The key, like everything, is going to be creating those relationships and, taking the time to reach out every couple weeks and let them know that you're still here. You have a house that's ready or going to be ready, and you really want to work with them and help those people. Don't talk so much about the money. Just talk about the fact that you have a house coming up and you would like to get on their list as a housing provider. Do they have room in their grant right now to put you on as one of their housing providers? Or when does their next cycle of grant funding come up? Once you have that, and we will go over what, that there are a couple things, agreements to look at inside. I have a few examples of what you need to look at that we will go over in a later class, is what I'm trying to say. So you'll get familiar with what an associate agreement looks like and maybe what a government invoice looks like. We will also go over a memorandum of understanding, so you know what that looks like as well. So you can see this is not going to be very saturated of a market. Like Airbnb is very saturated right now. But when you are trying to work with the government, it's not very saturated. So if you are taking this class right now, in 2023, good job, because you are getting in very early and you can see that homelessness is exploding, unfortunately. So I think if you just focus on this, you'll do well and be able to diversify what your homes are doing for you. Looking again here at the numbers, these are all single beds. And how we like to note them, we'll say room 1A, 1B. And so on the bed, it'll actually have an A or a B or a C or a D. And then the safe that we attach to the dresser will have an A, a B, a C, a D. The reason for that is because there are keys for those barrel locks or for some of those things that the property manager needs to have. Let's get to the money. We have about 17 more minutes to go on these spreadsheets. So what I have done here, looking at line 39, column F right here, this is your total monthly expenses for this property address. When you change these, of course, it's going to add up here on what your monthly expense will be. Do not change this one because it has a formula. That's the credit card fees. So just be mindful. I don't know what your mortgage is or your taxes. I don't know if you have credit card processing or if you want everyone to pay by check. So this is why it's difficult for me to run the numbers for you on any property address that you just drop in our inbox, or, if Julie's looking at it or JJ. So we, of course, can go back and forth and do this analysis for you. We're just going to need to ask you a few questions. Here's our expense. And sorry about that. But somebody calling me on both lines. Okay, so looking here, 900, here's a vacancy just for the example purpose. 900, 900, 900. Utility share I didn't have in here because a lot of times when you work with a nonprofit or a government, they're not going to pay you a utility share. You just have to add that to your weekly or to your monthly. And then also use 4.2 weeks in a month if they private pay versus weekly pay. So you'll see on our standard operating procedure and our welcome agreements that we give them just a slight discount if they're going to pay one time in the month instead of every week for accounting benefits. And then if it's government, they might have a per diem where you have to break it down into a per day. So you're not going to also have a utility share. Now on Craigslist, when you're just getting starting out, or if you have a bed that's empty and you don't get contracts or something, having the Craigslist option and looking at Craigslist to do an analysis to start with is really important to make sure that you can rent it out either by the room or 2 people in a room and cover all of your expenses. And so wherever you see these red marks, there's a comment. And so it'll say something from me like, consider what private payers might pay if they are coming from Craigslist. And again, that is not the goal. The goal is to have contracts from a government or a nonprofit through placement officers at a nonprofit or at a jail or somewhere. Probation officers, just having that relationship, a hospital specialist who handles housing when people leave, like a case manager. And then that's different than a funding alliance. A funding alliance would be you might have money coming in from either that same person or their organization, or you might have money coming from someone else or something else, which helps to pay for those beds. That can be a different nonprofit who is just their sole mission is raising money for veterans, for example. And so you would want to contact all the veteran organizations. You could do that in the state and basically just say, hey, listen, I'm going to have 10 houses for veterans. I'm starting out with 1. I can see that your mission on your website is to raise money for veterans. Would you be willing to allocate a certain amount of money to me, to this house, whatever the house is called? So that way we know that these veterans can get in and maybe they don't have a job right away, if they're coming out of the hospital. And so they might need 4 weeks worth of their bed to be covered, which includes all of their utilities. And so would you mind donating $3,000 a month to cover, right? And so they would give you the money, and then your job would be to talk with the hospital or another veterans organization, maybe the homeless shelter, and say, if you have any veterans there, please send them to us. We have funding for them for the first 4 weeks. And then you could rotate people in and out that way. Okay, so I have a combination here of government pays or contracts. I have a vacancy of 1 bed. I have some people off of Craigslist given. If you just go on your local Craigslist, you can see what people are paying. You can search just for a 1 room or 1 bed. A lot of times there are people who just offer 1 bed and they will charge weekly for the bed. That's a pretty good indication of what the market is yielding. And then of course there are rooms that are available, but you want to do 2 people in every bed, or I'm sorry, two beds in every room, which would be more like a contract with the government or a nonprofit. So you're housing as many people as possible. Okay, so you can see here that on line 54, column F, the gross monthly rents, $7,470. I've put in here concession non-payment and minused out $900. This means it's actually full. There's a person living there, but they didn't pay for some reason. So you're looking at $6,570. Of that, 10% would go to your property manager who's taking care of, you know, move-ins and move-outs and maintenance and collecting money, those kinds of things. So you don't have to do that because you're not boots on the ground. Your property manager might even go and meet with, you know, different social workers or invite social workers in and do an open house. So they do a lot and they deserve 10%. We, in addition to that, give them, because we're a nonprofit 501c3 and we know that they go over and above for us, then we'll give them a donation receipt for another 10% because they donated their time and possibly even money. So what this comes down to is that 2518 is the net before commission to the property manager. And then we're going to take out the 657. And so the check to us as an operator, if you own the house and you're not sharing the profits with anybody, would be $1,861 per month. So I hope you can see how this spreadsheet works. And there are formulas built in down here, so do not delete those. Or make sure that you save your original template and, change the name of it once you add the address. I do want to remind you that we have a Facebook group. You guys can search for it, and we are housing the documents there for the class because I have learned that the platform that we use for the videos, they no longer allow documents to be posted. And so you'll have the documents on your email and you should save those. Or if you join the Facebook group, you'll also have them in the Facebook group. In the Facebook group, you can also ask questions. And then, when I have time, then I will try and answer those questions, but it won't be the same day. If you would like to have same day access to our team, then we do have paid consulting. And then also you would probably want to get on some kind of a, 3 or 4 hours a month if you are going to go down this. So that way you could give a call to Julie, give a call to me, give a call to Kristen. Kristen does some code enforcement for us and giving a call to the codes, She works in New York, primarily New York City, but she can help if you're in places that are really touchy about that kind of stuff. Okay, moving on to the other spreadsheet. So looking here, you can see that this is our pro forma acquisition, arbitrage, or commercial Excel spreadsheet. And basically, this is really good if you're trying to get an idea of your cash on cash, your debt coverage ratio, your cap rate, because you're looking at doing something like a debt service loan. So DSCR loan, right? If you're looking to do that. Also, if you are going to be doing more than one unit. And so you basically would fill out the date, the property address, the number of units, the purchase price. This is if you can, if you wanted to make offers, you could kind of get an idea that if you were going to purchase it. Square footage. This is the market rent. And so now that you have an idea of the market rent here, you can put that in on the other sheet. Now, you actually would want to put in the 900 here and take out the concession non-payment. So that way you're starting with what the top dollar is. And so, if there was no vacancy and if there were no non-payments or concessions, This particular property or scenario of a, 6-bedroom spaces would be leased up or sheltered up for $83.70 times 12. And so going back to this sheet here, that if you take that dollar amount times 12, that's $100,440. Now, if you were looking at buying somebody else's operation, you would have market, which is what it could be. And then you would, of course, have actual, which is what it is. And you could look at what the loss to lease is. We do reference here, be sure you have competitive pricing annually and just in general, unless, of course, you're going to, want to quick price something and just get somebody in. Now, that would only be if that was a private payer. Now, what I want to show you is that there again are these red little marks. So it'll say something like use $250 for interest only. So right now we're primarily looking to arbitrage because of the market conditions, unless there was something that really made sense. And at that time we had the capital to do it. And so this is actually showing you, the primary debt service at $2,500 divided by 12, or I'm sorry, $25,000 divided by 12 is the $2,083 that I had on the other spreadsheet for the monthly mortgage or rent. And so that's just coming from me doing the math at the $250, right? The purchase price at $250, which drops into here because of the formula. 10% interest only gives me my rental payment. Furniture financing, you can see here that there's a note to use, $10,000 if you're doing the furniture at least, unless it's going to be more. And then, we have here in this note, let me take a look, to use, it would be a couple months worth of your deposit for rent, and then you have 90 days worth of what it would be. So that way you can get it all set up and then get, everybody moved in before it's actually performing at 100% capacity or occupancy. And so this drops in from your rents, 10% vacancy, which we talked about, concessions to equal that, net rental income, taxes. So you would want to put back in your property taxes, which in this scenario was $32.47 and so forth. And so you would want to go through here and just make sure that everything looks good to you. And this is how much money you're going to make. And it's about the same. So we're at minute number 59 right now. And I would recommend that you run your own scenario on a property that you have right now in your pipeline. The more living space, the better. The more number of bedrooms or bed spaces, the better. You do want them to be private with a locked door if at all possible, or it would be an unlocked door if it were sober living, unless it were the house manager or house president. So, or of course, if they've been sober for quite a while, then they would probably be fine. So these are some things to take a look at, and I will talk to you on class number 4. Thank you so much, and I look forward to working with you real soon.